Whatever you're looking for in music, you'll find in his work. If you're looking for ballads, you'll find them. If you're looking to dance with someone, you'll find it. I said the word genius is bandied around too much. But if there's one person it can be applied to, it's Stevie Wonder.
From the moment Mick and Keith met through to U2 as a high school band in Dublin, how did our biggest music legends make the leap? Passion, talent, luck, and even scandal often came together to propel these stars from obscurity to household name. The stories, the journey, the wild behind the scenes, and much more. I'm Dave Anthony, and I'm the host of From Garage to Stadiums. Welcome to Garage to Stadiums. Today's episode is the story of Stevie Wonder. A child prodigy who released his first album at age 12, Stevie Wonder rose from deep poverty, a fractured home, and a significant physical disability to become one of the most influential musicians of all time. He's won 25 Grammy Awards, won an Oscar for Best Song, is a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductee, and was awarded a Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2014, and has sold nearly 70 million albums. He was also a master of discovering new sounds, as you will hear from our returning guest, Paolo Hewitt, who has followed Stevie's career for decades. Paolo was a writer for UK music magazines, New Musical Express and Melody Maker, where he both interviewed Stevie Wonder and reviewed several of his albums. Paolo has also written extensively about the hip-hop scene and has authored books on several artists. He appeared on two very popular Garage to Stadiums episodes to discuss the careers of David Bowie and Oasis. Welcome to Garage to Stadiums, Paolo.
Hi there. Yeah, great to be back again. I hear I'm the first one to be. This is my third appearance.
That's right.
A record.
We're calling you Hat Trick Hewitt.
There you go.
Paolo, tell me what's up. I know you've recently launched a podcast of your own. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah. It's called But We All Shine On. So the podcast is about people who were similarly brought up in what we call care here, or in a children's home, and it's about how it's about people who've done well in life. So we did a guy called Mark Riddell who grew up with a really terrible mother and father, and is now an MBE and advises the government on issues to do with children's home. We did Pauline Black. Do you know the band The Selector?
Okay.
We did Pauline. She was fostered. She was the black girl in a white family in a very racist area, and obviously she's in a very successful band.
So these are stories of people who have risen above the troubled beginnings.
You know, the thing is, it's about the human spirit. It's about how amazing the human spirit can be, that it can withstand all this cruelty and isolation and despair and come shining through at the end. It's quite something, you know. That's
an admirable effort that you've put together there. So
thank you.
I want to give you a shout out for it.
Thank you.
Today we're going to talk about Stevie Wonder. I know you hold Stevie in high regard. What are your initial thoughts as I say Stevie Wonder?
Just nothing but love for the man. He's just, I first heard him 76, probably songs. No, I'd have heard him before that. 71, 72. And I've just loved him ever since. I mean, not everything he's done, obviously, but I've just been a huge admirer. I put him up there with the greats. I actually, when you ask that question, I think of Mozart. I think he's like a Mozart. You know, he's our Mozart. That's what I think of him. I think the breadth and the width of the music, and he has this ability that as soon as, you know, with his great records, as soon as it starts, that's Stevie. You know, straight away that's Stevie. Other bands you might hear and they're all, you know, might be good, but straight away that's Stevie. He's a unique and you know, I put him up on Mount Rushmore.
And what do you think is unique about that sound? What resonates when you hear it and you go, that's Stevie?
The actual production, but the actual arrangements. One thing that's never really spoken about is what such a great singer. He is such a great vocalist. And the way that his songs are structured, the way they move from one part to another, is unique to him. It's like the Beatles had that, and the greats have that. They start off at point A, and when they go to point B, you've never heard someone go to that point B in that manner before.
Right.
Yeah, so that's why, and I love the way that he covers so much musical ground. He's not just soul, he's not just R&B, but he's ballad, he's rock, he's funk, he's classical.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he is a truly, you know, I sometimes I think to myself that I feel blessed that I was born in a time, you know, that I could hear Stevie Wonder. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I hear you.
Yeah.
And we're going to get to some of those incredible albums that really changed music in the 70s for sure, and even earlier. But what do you think of, speaking of challenging childhoods, do you know much about his early life? It was, he was signed by Motown, but man, he came from a difficult upbringing.
Speaking of difficult childhoods, it always amazes our Garage to Stadiums team, Paolo, how a good majority of the artists we feature had to overcome significant childhood hardship, and Stevie's upbringing was no different. It started with his birth. Stevie was born Steveland Hardaway Judkins on May 13th, 1950 in Saginaw, Michigan, about an hour and a half north of Detroit.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that people might not realize is he wasn't born blind. He was born with sight, but they put too much air in the incubator.
Yeah, oxygen.
Yeah, so after 6 weeks, he was blind.
Yes, it's a condition called retinopathy of prematurity, which can lead to permanent blindness in some premature babies. It is associated with the use of oxygen in incubators, whereby the oxygen can apparently trigger abnormal blood vessel growth or cause existing vessels to grow incorrectly. I read where Stevie actually said, "God blessed me with music and took away my sight." But then he went on to say, "But I see far more than most people ever will." Paolo, let's get into a bit more background on Stevie. He was born the third child of 5 siblings, raised in a tiny apartment with very limited means. His mother, Lula Mae Hardaway, had been in an abusive relationship with his father, a man named Calvin Judkins. According to biography of Stevie's mother, Lula, called Blind Faith, Calvin was a drinker and a prolific womanizer who appeared at various times, but disappeared for longer periods of time. In that biography, Lula incredibly tells of Stevie's father, Calvin, forcing her into prostitution to help pay household bills. After separating from Calvin, Lula moved Stevie and his siblings to Detroit in 1954, when Stevie was 4 years old, living in the Brewster Douglas housing projects, one of the city's most impoverished areas.
He came from a very working class area of Detroit, which he talks about a lot in I Wish, you know, sneaking out the back door, hang out with those hoodlum friends of mine. He had a loving mother. The father seems to have been absent, but the mother has been very dominant with him.
Lula continued to struggle to make ends meet. Stevie would bang on pots and pans because they couldn't afford toys. But little Stevie seemed to gravitate to sounds and taught himself to play harmonica, piano, and drums by the age of 8, largely by ear because of his blindness. Next, we will hear how an entrepreneurial record company started by another man in Detroit helped change the future of Stevie Wonder. Stevie's destiny changed because the entrepreneurial efforts in 1959 of a man from Detroit named Berry Gordy Jr., a former boxer, Korean War vet, failed record store owner, and Ford auto worker. While working at Ford, he hung out at a nightclub and started dabbling in music by writing songs for soon-to-be famous Detroit singer Jackie Wilson and a young, then unknown group called Smokey Robinson and the Miracles, even co-writing various songs for them like Shop Around. After this songwriting success, he had a bigger goal, bringing Black music to white America. In one of the great entrepreneurial stories of America, Berry Gordy took his savings from his songwriting royalties, plus $800 he borrowed from his family, and launched something revolutionary, what became known as Motown Records. That meant breaking through a segregated radio system of the 1950s and early 60s. Barry wanted to demonstrate that Black performers were talented, entertaining, and sophisticated. He wanted his acts trained in choreography, dress, and even manners, hiring etiquette expert Maxine Powell to polish his stars. Motown soon became famous to future legends, Diana Ross and the Supremes, Marvin Gaye, the Temptations, and eventually a little boy who would become known as Stevie Wonder. Here's how the connection to Stevie Wonder was made. At the tender age of 11, Stevie started performing with his childhood friend, John Glover. Stevie and John started as a street corner duo, Stevie on vocals, bongos, and harmonica, with John on guitar and harmonies. They soon played at parties and dances, but everything changed when Stevie's bandmate John introduced him to his cousin, a man named Ronnie White, who was in Smokey Robinson's group, The Miracles, who were by now assigned act to Berry Gordy's new company, Motown Records. Ronnie White recommended that Berry Gordy needed to audition this little boy of 11 named Stevie. Stevie wowed Gordy, singing, drumming, playing harmonica and piano on his own composition called Lonely Boy, and Berry Gordy sang Stevie on the spot at age 11. Motown dubbed him Little Stevie Wonder. Berry Gordy said of Stevie when reflecting on the signing of the youngster, he had the hunger, the discipline, and the soul of someone far beyond his years. And as Paolo said, Gordy added, Stevie's mother, Lula's strength was the foundation of it all. Because of Wonder's age, Berry Gordy drew up a rolling 5-year contract in which royalties could be held in trust until Wonder was 21. He and his mother would be paid a weekly stipend to cover their expenses, about $2.50 per week, equivalent to $26.30 approximately today. In 1962, at the age of 12, Stevie's debut album was released and was called The Jazz Soul of Little Stevie. Stevie played harmonica, bongos, drums, organ, and piano. The album was all instrumental jazz and meant to feature Stevie's all-around musicality, namely that he wasn't just a child singer, he was a versatile musical force in the making. And Paolo, Stevie was quite a character in his own right.
But he also developed this great sense of humor. When he signed to Motown, he used to love, he's a very good mimic. Because of his blindness, all his other senses are accentuated. And so he would ring up Motown and pretend to be Berry Gordy, and they would think it was Berry Gordy. And he'd ring him up and he'd go, tell so-and-so, give Stevie 3 more albums and another £20,000, stuff like that.
He also composed 2 original songs on that album, one of which was Fingertips, a harmonica-led instrumental. As Paolo said, just after that first album release in 1962, Stevie joined what was known as the Motown Revue, Berry Gordy's efforts at raising the profile of his record label by starting a traveling showcase of Motown stars like the Supremes, Marvin Gaye, and Gladys Knight and the Pips. The tour traveled across the U.S. and Europe and faced open racism, especially in the segregated U.S. South. In one terrifying moment in Birmingham, Alabama, gunshots rang out as the tour bus was being loaded. But even under such conditions, young Stevie's talent began to shine. Between navigating life on the road, Stevie attended the Michigan School for the Blind in Lansing, Michigan, studying classical piano and completing his high school education. His mother, concerned about Stevie's education, asked Berry Gordy to pay for a tutor named Ted Hull to travel with him on the Revue tours. Hull, a white man, often had to advocate for the all-black Motown group in the Revue just to get them basic access to food and lodging. And that Fingertip song from his first album was also recorded live on that tour. And that live version of that song, that harmonica-led instrumental, became his first #1 hit at the incredible age of 13. Still, Motown struggled to market him. One album had Stevie covering Ray Charles songs, an awkward attempt to compare him to a legendary blind performer. Others had him singing jazz standards like When I Wish Upon a Star, or even beach music to cash in on the popularity of the Beach Boys and surf music in 1964 with an album called Stevie at the Beach. Throughout the 60s, Motown had him trying out various genres. He covered folk tunes like Blowing in the Wind by Bob Dylan, pop songs by Sonny and Cher, R&B songs by Otis Redding, and even rock songs like Light My Fire by the Doors and others by the Beatles, as the search for a signature Stevie sound continued through much of the mid-60s. None of these genres seemed to resonate with audiences.
How do you think his early Motown years shaped his later world? Because I know they struggled to find him a sound, but what do you think that did for him, those early Motown years?
Well, I think that, yeah, you're right. I mean, if you listen to those albums, they kind of go all over the place. They can't. It's a bit like Aretha. They struggled with her to find her niche, and but I think with Stevie, what he did was he learned songwriting because he was with 2 or 3 other songwriters, and I think from then and going in the studio, he absorbed it all, absorbed it.
Yeah,
And
he was like the gym rats, we call them, the guy who just wants to hang around the gym. He just wanted to hang out in that studio.
Absolutely. Because music must have been, I mean, music as a force is something that is a healing presence, or is something which, once you enter the world of music, and I had this as a kid growing up, everything else around you disappears. All the problems you've got or anything, it just disappears if you're immersed in music, as he was. And he had an early hit with God, I've just forgotten his name, Uptight, and where he was 12, 13. Then he was going on tours, Motown tours.
Yeah, the Motown Review.
Yeah, he did the Motown Review. So it was just, I mean, the guy was just absorbing music from like a very, very early age.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that, I think, is what stood him in such good stead until he was 21.
A bright spot came very unexpectedly out of a challenging situation in 1966 when Stevie Wonder was 16. As Stevie's voice began changing during adolescence, Berry Gordy of Motown actually considered dropping him until a woman named Sylvia Moy stepped in to help. Who was Sylvia Moy? Well, she was a Motown performer herself, but Berry Gordy had asked her to instead become a songwriter to supply the Motown acts in need of constant new song material. Sylvia thought highly of Stevie and begged Berry Gordy for one more shot for the youngster Stevie. She promised to write him a hit. That hit was Uptight, Everything's All Right, on his 1966 album of the same name. And incredibly, because of Stevie's blindness, Sylvia had to feed Stevie each line through his headphones as he recorded, just one line ahead of the now 16-year-old. Somehow, Stevie nailed it. The success of Uptight marked Stevie's transition from child prodigy to mature recording artist and saved his career at Motown. Uptight reached number 3 on the pop chart. Suddenly, Stevie wasn't just a prodigy, he was a hit maker. Another track from that album, Nothing's Too Good for My Baby, climbed to number 4, further proving he was now a marketable force with real creative input. After the success of the song Uptight, the next couple of years started to accelerate Stevie. In 1967, still only 17, his album, I Was Made to Love Her, started to reveal his signature sound, with the title track going to number 2 on the Billboard pop charts in July 67. By 1968, Stevie followed up with the album For Once in My Life. That title track became another smash, reaching number 2 on the pop charts, just shy of the top spot, blocked by Marvin Gaye's I Heard It Through the Grapevine. Still, Stevie kept the momentum going with Shooby Dooby Doo Day, which made it to number 9 on Billboard. Not only did he write the songs, he actually co-produced the album at age 18. His voice, songwriting, musicianship, and production oversight were now fully in sync, and the world was starting to realize just how special he was. In 1969, with his album Chérie Amour, Stevie displayed his genre-defying versatility to produce mainstream pop and love songs, with the title track going to number 4 on the charts. It was his 8th top 10 hit, and he was still only 19. The hits continued. 1970, Signed, Sealed, and Delivered went to number 3 on the Billboard charts. In 1971, Stevie Wonder reached another turning point, both musically and personally, when he began co-writing with Motown artist Sarita Wright, who had become his wife the year before. Their partnership marked a creative breakthrough. For the first time, Stevie released an album called Where I'm Coming From that featured all original material, co-written entirely by him and Sarita, rather than having covers of other artists on an album. Songs like If You Really Love Me and Do Yourself a Favor showed a new depth and direction in Stevie's songwriting.
Exactly. He just heard music. And probably because he couldn't see the reaction of people around him or whatever, or, you know, it was just that's what his mindset was. And when he comes, I think his first album after that deal you're talking about is Where I'm Coming From. And a lot of it, he wrote that with his girlfriend at the time, Sarita Wright, and he produced her 2 solo albums.
Yes, that's right.
Which are brilliant, by the way. The first one is, you know, I mean, here we go. The other thing.
Well, the first album with Sarita was the first time that he actually did their own material, correct? There wasn't any covers on that album.
As we mentioned earlier, Stevie's early royalty earnings were placed in a trust fund till he turned 21. So when he did turn 21 in 1971, he was shocked at how little money he had and believed he was financially shortchanged, especially considering the massive profits Motown and Berry Gordy made off of hits like his many top 10 hits. However, this was standard practice at Motown during the 1960s, especially with young or less business-savvy artists. Many Motown artists, including the Supremes, the Temptations, and Marvin Gaye, later complained about unfair financial treatment.
And so he then comes back and he says to Berry Gordy, I'm going to do my own albums now. You know, and Berry Gordy's a funny one because Berry Gordy's running a very, I mean, Berry Gordy's commercial instincts are you know, impeccable, because by the time Stevie's now doing this, well, you know, he's had hit after hit. You know, he knows, I mean, he's a taskmaster, but he knows what sells, and he's incredibly successful. But there were 2 artists that he always struggled with, and that was Marvin Gaye, who said, I want to do the What's Going On album, and Berry fought him all the way until it went to #1, and then Berry was all over him. And Stevie, because Stevie said, I'm going to write and produce and do my own thing. If you want to sign me, great. And if you don't, I'll go somewhere else.
So what did Stevie decide? Would he let his Motown contract expire to put maximum pressure on Berry Gordy, the owner of Motown? That would have been a rare and bold move at the time.
We spoke earlier about Stevie's first 10 years, where Berry Gordy notoriously is very tight with the money, and Stevie was kind of disappointed at the royalties he received. And then he said, you know what, we're renegotiating this in 1971.
Yeah.
And he gets a massive increase in royalties. He gets an upfront.
He gets £1 million, right?
Yeah.
In 1971, Stevie negotiated a landmark new contract with Berry Gordy and Motown, giving him full artistic control, higher royalties, and an ownership of his publishing rights going forward. His new deal resulted in a 14% royalty rate, up from the previous 2%. This agreement also included an advance of over $900,000 and substantial annual guarantees. Stevie, now age 21, had negotiated better terms, including full creative control and ownership of his music, and gone was the mandate to do cover songs and other creative control exerted by Berry Gordy and Motown. Stevie was free to create his own style, and as the 1970s dawned, as we'll hear next, he would prove his abilities on an entirely new level, one that would impact music forever. So what would Stevie's new music style be now that he had a newly minted contract that guaranteed a clean canvas of creative control? Well, next we'll talk about how Stevie's musical path starts with knocking on a door in New York City. Let's rewind now to what precipitated Stevie knocking on a random door in New York City and finding that new musical direction. Well, it starts in the spring of 1971. Stevie had been listening to an album by a pair of far-out performers called Tonto's Expanding Headband. He was intrigued by the sounds on that album of a new type of instrument that the performers had invented based on their use of what they called Tonto synthesizers, an evolution of the Moog synthesizer invented earlier in the 1960s. Stevie was blown away by the soundscapes on the Tonto Expanding Headband album. And so Stevie, ever the spontaneous innovator, decided to drop in unannounced to visit the recording studio in New York City, where he encountered the hippie-looking twosome who made up Tonto's Expanding Headband, a British jazz bassist and producer named Malcolm Cecil, and an American producer and sound engineer, Bob Margoloff. These two men were white and made quite a visual pairing. Malcolm Cecil sported a massive afro and trademark white overalls, and Bob Margoloff routinely wore ankle-length fur coats and hair that went down to his elbows. Their sonic experiments were equally striking. Within mere hours of meeting Cecil and Margoloff, Stevie was experimenting with the synthesizer, learning its quirks, and by the end of that random visit weekend, the trio had recorded 17 new songs, including the beginnings of a song called Evil, which would appear on Stevie's next album, 1972's Music of My Mind. Other tracks included on that album, Superwoman, Having You Around, and Keep On Running. This album marked the first full display of Stevie's new synthesizer work and studio independence to create his own sound.
Malcolm Cecil and Robert Margoloff, Tonto's Expanding Headband. They were synthesizer innovators.
Yeah.
Stevie hears their album.
Yeah.
And goes, my goodness, I need to figure out how to use this instrument, the Moog synthesizer.
And so he goes and spends a year with them in New York. And I read an interview, and this guy reckoned that they'd done 36 songs. Okay?
Yes.
Now then, think about albums. Albums at that time, vinyl, circular 12-inch things.
10 or 12 tracks, maybe.
10 to 12. So they basically made in a year three and a half, 4 albums.
Wow.
Right? I mean, it's just staggering. If that is true, that's staggering. And it shows how Stevie's instincts were spot on to make that move. I mean, we spoke about Bowie, didn't you? So I suppose Bowie going off to do Low and Berlin is a similar journey, but it's quite something. And for him to be coming from that R&B world, you see, that's the thing about Stevie. He transcends all genres.
Yeah, that's a great point, Paolo.
Yeah, he just transcends all genres because, you know, like you say, he heard the album, the Tonto Expanding Headband album, and he went, that's where I need to go.
Which, you know, historically R&B and soul, I mean, to introduce electronic kind of sounds, that's pretty innovative.
And also the thing is as well that, you know, you know this yourself, but those two worlds were miles apart, miles and miles apart. You know, there was a separate chart, wasn't there, for R&B records and they were just two different worlds.
Absolutely.
You know? And Stevie made the across the bridge. You know,
was he one of the first artists to kind of incorporate the synthesizer into sort of mainstream?
Absolutely, and to bring it into R&B and into funk and to make it funky and to make it soulful. I mean, yeah, there's that Creeping. You know the song Creeping?
Mm-hmm.
You know, the way he plays, he makes that soulful. That synthesizer is soulful on there, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then on Superstition, it's funky as hell, right?
Yeah.
That Moog sound, you know. He was just driven by his music. And it's got Happier Than the Morning Sun, Girl Blue, Keep On Running, I Love Every Little Thing About You. These are just great songs. And Superwoman.
Yep. Having You Around is a good track.
Oh, I love Having You Around is a great track.
If you played Having You Around from that Music of My Mind, and then you play Tumbling Dice by the Stones, you almost hear a similar, like that backup female chorus that goes on and on. I think Mick was listening. And then goes on, as you said, to start to really revolutionize really revolutionized the music industry. I mean, he ends up opening up for the Stones in '72 on their tour.
That sent him to a new. That crossed the bridge again. You see, for Stevie, music is music. He's not bothered about categories. He's not bothered about, you know, genres. If it's a good album, it's a good album.
Right.
And if it's good music, it's good music. So he's actually he's selling himself to. He doesn't care. He'll do anything.
Paolo referenced the prolific amount of songs created with Malcolm and Margoloff that put Stevie in a position to quickly release another album in that same year of 1972 called Talking Book, and it marked the beginning of his so-called classic period, a stretch of 4 years from 1972 to 1976, where Stevie released album after album that weren't just critically acclaimed, but revolutionary. The Talking Book album gave us Superstition, a song Stevie had written for Jeff Beck, but instead wisely kept for himself, and You Are the Sunshine of My Life.
I remember that at school, and I remember thinking, I mean, there's these kind of singles like You Are the Sunshine, and I Just Called to Say I Love You, and what's the baby one? Isn't she?
Oh yeah, the baby one.
Yeah, he's got that thing that McCartney's got. He can write these really kind of, I don't want to use the word trite, but these kind of, very, not much substance or depth to them. Pretty songs,
Right. And I guess that's the flexibility that any genre he's happy to go to. So
absolutely.
And what about Superstition? I mean, that song, man, that song was everywhere.
Oh man, was that the same for you, right?
Oh, that guy owned the mid-'70s. All I remember is Stevie winning awards and putting these albums out.
Yeah, exactly. And everywhere you went, you heard that. So I remember going to school. I remember it one morning going to school. I'm just up by the alleyway that led to the field, and somebody was playing Superstition in the house. I was walking.
I would argue that opening of that song is one of the most recognizable tracks in the history of music.
Yeah, you're spot on.
Both Superstition and You Are the Sunshine of My Life went straight to number one, and each song won Stevie a Grammy for Best R&B Performance, with Superstition and pop vocal performance for Sunshine of My Life. Another funky track called Maybe Your Baby was about challenging romantic relationships, and a song called Big Brother mocked the words of politicians that never materialized in progress for Black people. The album was funky, romantic, and political, and the world was listening. And remember at the beginning of this story, that little boy that impressed Berry Gordy at Motown Records at age 11 with his versatility on various instruments? Well, on this Grammy-winning album, Stevie played every instrument. Next came 1973's Innervisions. Stevie continued on with his New York synthesizer wizards, Cecil and Margoloff, at his side. The album won a Grammy for Best Album of the Year, and Cecil and Margoloff were listed as associate producers and engineers and programmers on the album. They were recognized with a Grammy Award together for Best Engineered Recording. Now Stevie was going even deeper. This record tackled social justice, drug abuse, systemic racism, and spiritual longing. Living for the City, for example, was a cinematic protest song of social commentary on the complex challenges facing the inner city.
I think you're right about the social commentary, because and he's very good at it as well. His lyrics, like Living for the City, that whole stuff about a boy and he's trying to get a job and he can't do it and he has to steal, and he got it. He understood it in one. And a bit like Dylan with some of his, like Hurricane, the way he's able to lay out that whole song for you, that whole story.
Yeah.
In lyrical form, and Stevie does that obviously with Living for the City, and becomes involved in a lot of social causes.
Correct.
In fact, he plays up in Harlem, and he plays a lot of benefits, and he's using music now as a social force.
The Higher Ground song would prove dangerously prescient, as next we'll discuss how Stevie was involved in a serious accident that threatens not only his career, but his life. In August 1973, while traveling through North Carolina, mere days after the critically acclaimed Innervisions album was released, Stevie is involved in a serious car accident. A car he was in collided with a flatbed truck, and a log from the truck struck him in the head. Stevie was in a coma for several days, and when he finally woke up, incredibly, he lost his sense of taste and smell. Thankfully, he regained his lost senses shortly after.
And that 73 Intervisions, Paolo, was the first of his Grammy run. He won the Grammy Album of the Year that year.
Okay.
And then it followed up that with 74. He's got Fulfilling This First Finale.
Yeah. What does that
Boogie
mean?
On Reggae Woman.
What does
You
that
Haven't
mean,
Done
fulfilling
Nothing.
this first finale? I remember when I was a kid, it was like, Steve's got a new album out. What's it called? Fulfilling this first finale. What?
I know, that's a hard one.
The what? The finale is what? Yeah.
After his accident, Stevie was more committed than ever to using his music to reflect the world's beauty and its injustices. His 1974 album, Fulfilling This's First Finale, won a Grammy for the second year in a row for Album of the Year. It contains songs like Boogie On Reggae Woman, You Haven't Done Nothing, which featured fellow Motown act the Jackson 5 and a young Michael Jackson, and Please Don't Go. The album also won 3 other Grammys that year.
I think he kind of connects with God during that time, like higher ground. He's talking about spiritual uplift. That's what he's talking about. He's talking about the higher ground. He's talking about the ground that Jesus walks on.
Yeah.
That's and you know, on Songs in the Key of Life, I remember there was a leaflet, a pamphlet with the lyrics, but right at the bottom it said, "Thank you, God, because it was through God that these songs came." So he's, you know, so I think and it was close, wasn't he? Like you say, he was in a coma, and took him a bit of time to recover, but I think he probably found God there. I think.
Well, he talks about that in one of his quotes. He said, you know, I lost my sight, but God gave me the gift of music.
Yeah.
Like, in other words, God gave me something that very few people have.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy goes on this
incredible run,
so much so that the next album, the one you referenced, Songs in the Key of Life, which I think that's what, the peak? Is that where we're getting to the peak here?
Yeah, absolutely, without a doubt. What I love about Stevie is he gets all this fame and acclaim and whatever, but he keeps his eyes on the prize, which is the music. And he spends 2 years on that album. And
yeah, that's right.
The people were saying, who were working on it, were just like, he was doing 18-hour days, you know. And
think about that, the folks in the audience. You're on this run where you've won 2 Grammys in a row.
Yeah.
You're so hot. You would think the pressure to go, I got to strike while the iron is hot. Instead, he spends 2 more years.
Yeah.
That's 75. Yeah. 75, 76 to do this album. Amazing.
And I remember it was a bass player or whatever. Said it's 4:00 in the morning and the phone rings.
Yeah.
Stevie, I got a good one. Get to the studio.
I got an idea. Get in there. Yeah.
And God, what songs are on there, man?
Well, there's Sir Duke.
Yeah, that's all right, but that's good. It's got
I Wish.
Nah, Joy Inside My Tears. Oh, I love that song.
Yeah. What else do you like on there?
Ads is just amazing. And then with the single you give away, that's Love's in Need of Love Today is. My mate went to see him. Stevie played Hyde Park, and Hyde Park's a huge place.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and he did Songs in the Key of Life, and he said, I wrote this song 50 years ago today, and it pains me to say that it's more relevant today than it ever was.
Wow.
And he played Love's.
That must have been awesome.
Yeah.
It was a double album too. I mean, to your point about output.
Throw me some more of the songs. Joy Inside Your Tears.
Love's in Need of Love. Have a Talk with God. Sir Duke. I Wish. Pastime Paradise. Isn't she lovely? Is one of those.
Yeah,
poppy
I always
ones.
used to skip that one. But I Wish is on there, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, how funky is that?
That is
I
great.
remember walking. I was at college, and I was walking to college. It was what we called a disco, you know.
Yeah.
And it was a summer night, and it was blaring out. I Wish. I just stopped in the middle of this driveway. Just went, wow, this just sounds.
Yeah.
I hadn't heard it before. I knew it was Stevie. He
sort of has these songs that you recognize instantly, but you can't remember the title because they're just so cool. You're listening to the music.
Yeah. And then he put that 4 And then there's a single that comes with the album, an extra 4 tracks.
Yeah.
He's got Another Star on there, which is, you know, one of his classics. I mean, it would go on any best of albums.
Yeah, it was such a funny story in '76, I guess, because Songs in the Key of Life out in '76. So he wins the Grammy in '77 because of the next year. But Paul Simon wins in '76, and he says, "I want to just thank this is an acceptance speech. I want to thank Stevie Wonder for not putting out an album this year to allow me to win the Grammy."
That's about right, isn't it? That's about right.
After those experimental and expansive Stevie works of the 1970s, the so-called classic period, Stevie releases the 1980 album Hotter Than July, which marks a return to shorter, more radio-friendly tracks. Its mix of pop appeal, political messaging, and musical influences of funk, reggae, soul, and pop showcase Stevie's versatility without the conceptual heaviness of earlier albums. It showed that Stevie could still evolve while staying grounded in soul music. It hit number 3 on the US charts, went platinum, and became Stevie's biggest success in the UK, 4 times platinum. More than just a hit record, Hotter Than July marked the start of Stevie's role as not just a musical genius, but a cultural activist with a global voice. An example of the reggae influence is the track Master Blaster Jammin', which was a tribute to Bob Marley. Stevie had been deeply influenced by Marley and even toured with him in 1979. The song contains the lyrics, quote, "From the park, I hear rhythms, and Marley is hot on the box." The song was a top 10 hit in several countries.
In past the 70s, he gets into sort of, I guess, the reggae, Master Blaster, and a few others. Or anything that stands out?
Album, I was a melody maker. And the first album that I reviewed of his was Hotter Than July, which was the one up next after Songs. And it was okay, but it was patchy.
The interesting thing on the 80 album is he has that song Happy Birthday. He's advocating socially now for Martin Luther King so that there's a national holiday in the US for King, which ultimately does happen in 1983. So he played a huge part in raising awareness of that issue.
Yeah. And that's what I mean. He knows how to use his his position, his power, you know, his influence to affect change. And there's no better example of that than that, is there?
As the 1980s progressed, Stevie was commissioned to write the soundtrack for the film Woman in Red. The soundtrack features Stevie's biggest hit, I Just Called to Say I Love You, which hit number 1 internationally and won the Academy Award for Best Original Song.
I interviewed him, right, in 86, 87. It was the Characters album, right? And I saw a show of his. So they flew me to Paris, and I saw a show of his there. Then we drove up. We went up to the next show, which was on the coast of France, okay?
Yeah.
And during that gig, so remember, I've seen
this is 1980-ish.
Yeah. And I've seen the set the night before. And there was a bit where it was one of the sort of Latin-y songs he did. Don't worry about a thing. You know, that's a bit Latin-y, right?
Yeah.
And there was a bit where he jammed, you know. So he's playing away and I'm watching him. And suddenly I see him hit 3 chords. Bang, bang. And I see him shout to the band, vamp on this, vamp on this. And I thought, he's writing a song on stage. He was writing a song on stage. He'd hit these songs. Yeah, honestly. You just go, wow. The albums afterwards are patchy, but in that interview I did, and it's so true, he said to me, I'll never make the albums I made in the 70s. I'll never make albums as good as that. But look out for my albums because there'll always be 1 or 2 gems on there.
What was his reasoning? He's just peaked, or there was?
He knew it. You know, so I mean, he's a wise man. He knew it wasn't. He knew that.
How could you duplicate perfection, kind of thing?
Yeah, you know, he knew that it was that period. I mean, all musicians have it, Dave. They have periods. James Brown, 1967 to 73, 74. The Beatles, 65 to 68. they all have these periods where
The Stones 68 to 72, yeah.
Oasis 94 to 97. I mean, that period is like you can't do any wrong.
Yeah, the peak run.
You've got it. You're on it. You're on top of your game. And Stevie understood that. But in terms of live performances, I mean, that guy could be. He's playing Hyde Park this summer.
Oh, is he?
And he could do 3 nights of 3 completely different sets, all as good, all of the same quality. That's how good that guy is.
Yeah, Bob Dylan says about Stevie, if anybody can be called a genius, Stevie Wonder can. I wouldn't put the label on many people, but I think it's appropriate here.
Yeah. You know what? I began the article about when I interviewed him. I said...
what year was that, Paulo? 1980?
87. And I said, no, 89. And I said that... I said the word genius is bandied around too much. But if there's one person it can be applied to, it's Stevie Wonder.
We've seen many periods of music, you and I, and the younger generation are seeing even more because obviously they're going to be around longer. What do you think younger generations do not know about Stevie or misunderstand or should know about this man?
Well, they should know that they're that this man is a genius, and that in the same way that great art has to be investigated. If you're interested in it, you have to investigate this man. You have to start. You've only got something like 48 studio albums to get through, but hey, it's worth it.
Yeah, right.
But I mean, he was so right. I mean, on the Characters album, when I interviewed him, there's a song called Overjoyed. It's just fantastic. There's another song called Free, which is as good as anything he'd ever done.
Right.
He's still got it. He's still Mr. Know-It-All.
Right.
I mean, if you're into music, if you're seriously into music, you have to investigate Stevie Wonder. There's just, it's like, you're doing English literature, you're going to do Shakespeare, right? You're doing music, you do Stevie.
Well, I remember one of his songs even influenced sort of the hip hop generation with the Pastime Paradise was redone.
Yeah, exactly.
As Gangster's Paradise.
Yeah. And he showed that you didn't have to be, categorized. He showed that if you got it, you can rise above all that, and you can become a force of your own, like he did.
And do you think that's his lasting legacy when people remember him?
It's Stevie. It's not, there's Ice-T, he's a hip hop guy. There's Luther Vandross, he's a R&B singer. It's Stevie, and just that, it's Stevie. Is a world in itself of music that it brings in jazz, that brings in funk, that brings in ballads, that brings in pop, that brings in rock, that brings in folk, and then he makes it all his own. Jazz, Latin. I mean, it's phenomenal. It's absolutely phenomenal. He's up there. He's just, that thing you have sometimes. I don't know if you have it. I have it sometimes. Think, who's number one? Dylan, the Beatles, Beach Boys, and often I think, it's Stevie. It's Stevie,
Yeah, in terms of the breadth, width, depth.
Yeah,
and just I can only think of Bowie is a guy who innovated across so many different soundscapes, but man, Wonder is right there or more. Like it's amazing.
And a good guy as well. I mean, I really, it was awful, the interview, because I had to do it in the dressing room afterwards, after the gig. And I was like, okay. And everybody was talking. And then there was about 30 people in the room. And everybody went, hey, Steve's doing an interview. Okay, sure. So suddenly I've got this audience, which I really don't want. I just want it to be me and Stevie.
Yeah.
Anyway, Anyway, David, about halfway through, I froze, right? I looked at him and I thought, oh, my God, it's Stevie Wonder. It's Stevie. I couldn't talk. And he was going, oh, have you finished? Have you finished? And I'm like, and I just asked some crap question just to just to give me space, just to.
Wow.
And I was hoping he'd do that thing, blind people do it. They put their hands on your face. And I kept.
I mean, that says something, eh? For a rock journalist who's met all the stars like you have, to actually be speechless with the man.
Speechless, man. I mean, I've known him. I've known his music like since 71, like I said, 71, 72. So, it's like like there's air, there's water, and there's Stevie Wonder. Do you know what I mean? It's that,
Right. If you had to pick 3 songs that, say, somebody who's coming into Stevie or looking to investigate, where would be 3 songs they should focus on? And then we're going to ask you about one album they should dive deep into just to get a flavor for this man.
Okay. Well, I'd go Golden Lady. I would go Free, this song Free, which I think is off the Characters album. And I would go Overjoyed, which is another later song. I've gone for the later songs because I'd like people to realise that there is stuff later on. The album is Songs in the Key of Life.
Yeah.
Probably the greatest double album ever.
Voted number 4 by Rolling Stone magazine in the top 500.
And what was above it, may I ask?
Well, that's a great question. I think.
How dare they? Who are these people?
Yeah, I shouldn't have said that. You're going to be pissed.
I am. I bet the Stones and the Beatles are there, aren't they?
I think Dylan was in there.
Yeah, well, that's fair enough.
Okay, number 1, Marvin Gaye.
Aha.
What's going on? Which, by the way, kept Stevie out of the top spot in 1971.
Wow, okay. I didn't know that.
The Beach Boys, Pet Sounds, number 2.
Okay. And Dylan, Blonde on Blonde, number 3?
No, Joni Mitchell, Blue.
What? That's a better album than Songs in the Key of Life?
And then number 4 is Stevie, and then the number 5 is Abbey Road.
They need to stop. They need to stop using that wacky backy in the Rolling Stones offices. And
that's good. All right. What is his lasting legacy? We've talked about a lot of things, him being a genius, but I mean, lasting legacy in the history of music. 100 years from now, people are going to go, Stevie was the blank.
Stevie was Stevie. Do you know what I mean?
You compared him to Mozart earlier. He's going to be one of the classical.
You go Mozart, right? When you say Mozart, you're talking, you're talking up there, right? You say Stevie. Stevie's up there, man.
Is there anything?
Whatever you're looking for in music, you'll find in his work. If you're looking for ballads, you'll find them. If you're looking to dance with someone, you'll find it. If you're looking to explore new musics, such as Latin or classical or funk, then you will find it. Everything that the world of music has to offer, he has touched upon in his canon of work, and I think that's an amazing legacy.
I like it.
Thank you,
Paolo. What is there any questions I didn't ask you that you'd like to say about Stevie? And we'll just fit these in somewhere. I don't know. Did we cover most of it?
I think we covered most of it. Apart from, can I tell you my really embarrassing story?
Sure.
There was a girl who I really liked, and she was a big Stevie fan. And I went to the reception for Hotter Than July. And Stevie was sitting on his own. And I went up to him, and I just wasn't thinking, man. I said, "Hello, Stevie. My name's Paolo. Can I get your autograph?" And he said, "Sure. Give me pen and paper." So I got pen and I got paper. And he started writing his name, and it took him maybe 2 minutes to write the S, and I'd forgotten. And I was just standing there, and his manager came over and he looked at me like, "You idiot, what are you doing?" And I was like, I know. And you know the kicker? I never got off with the girl. Gave it to her, she's like, "Thanks," and that was it. So
she wasn't meant for you if she turned down that.
But there will be a Stevie song that I can go to, and it will heal me from that particular traumatic incident, and that's the genius of the man.
Paulo, as always, you are a pleasure to have on this show. Your music knowledge is
it's always great to be on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stevie must have a massively large award cabinet. He's got an incredible 25 Grammy Awards. He's got an Oscar. In 1991, he was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. In 96, he got the Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award. And in 2014, he received the U.S. Presidential Medal of Freedom. Guess who he told to shut up during a performance once? Stevie was performing at a club when suddenly he yelled, "Shut up," at Lil Wayne, who was interrupting his show. In addition to Stevie Wonder playing pianos, keyboards, and synthesizers, he's renowned for his harmonica playing, particularly his use of the chromatic harmonica and his unique style incorporating blues and jazz elements. Stevie also plays drums, and his ability to maintain the groove while also manipulating tempo changes makes him a unique drummer, even according to some professional drummers. He also plays clavinet and bass, and even a harpeggi, a cross between a piano and a guitar. There's been several famous quotes about Stevie from legendary figures. Quincy Jones once said, "Stevie Wonder is a musical prophet, and his gift is a blessing to all of us." Bob Dylan said about Stevie, "If anybody can be called a genius, Stevie Wonder can. I wouldn't put that label on many people, but I think it's appropriate here." In 2014, an all-star tribute to Stevie Wonder was staged called Songs in the Key of Life, an all-star Grammy salute. A diverse set of performers, including Beyonce, Ed Sheeran, Lady Gaga, John Legend, Pharrell Williams, Tony Bennett, Andre Bocelli, and guitarist Gary Clark Jr. performed, as well as Janelle Monáe, Annie Lennox, Usher, LL Cool J, and even Stevie's singer-daughter, Aisha Morris, performed. In 2020, after 6 decades with the Motown label, starting when he was only 11 years old, Stevie Wonder announced the formation of his own music label. He called it What the Fuss Music, and it meant that Stevie would leave Motown after almost 60 years with the label. Isn't she lovely? His daughter, Aisha Morris, was born on February 2nd, 1975. After Aisha was born, Wonder said, quote, "She was the only thing that I needed in my life and in my music for a long time. Aisha was the inspiration for Wonder's hit single, Isn't She Lovely?" Kidney transplant. Stevie underwent a kidney transplant, reportedly successful in late 2019. As we discussed today, Stevie is an artist who broke barriers of music genres, performing soul, R&B, funk, pop, rock, reggae, and more during his career. So it's no surprise to see the wide-ranging acts that covered his songs, including the Red Hot Chili Peppers covering Higher Ground, George Michael, who did an entire album of Stevie covers. Prince had performed rousing editions of Superstition live, accompanying Stevie on guitar. Other performers have included the Fugees and Boyz II Men. Stevie's real last name was Hardaway. When Stevie was signed by Motown in 1961, his surname was legally changed to Morris, which was an old family name. Motown producers gave him the name Little Stevie Wonder. Stevie's single Fingertips was a #1 hit on the Billboard 100 when Stevie Wonder was aged 13 in 1963, and it made him the youngest artist ever to top the chart. In this episode, we discussed Berry Gordy of Motown Records. Here's some interesting lineage of Berry. His grandfather, named Berry Gordy I, was the son of James Gordy, a white plantation owner in Georgia, and one of his slaves. Berry I's half-brother James, son of the elder James and his legal wife, was the grandfather of President Jimmy Carter, making Berry Gordy and Jimmy Carter relatives. Thanks to our special guest today, former New Musical Express and melody maker writer Paolo Hewitt.
I'm Dave Anthony, and you've been listening to Garage to Stadiums, another Blast Furnace Labs production. See you next time for another Garage to Stadium story.